Welcome to NANP's monthly educational webinar series. I am your host, Andrea Granson, Education Specialist for the NANP. Today's topic is a beginner's guide to parasitic cleansing with Ginny Cicero. These webinars are recorded and can be viewed at any time by logging into the NANP members area where you can earn 1 continuing education credit. Okay, so let's get started. Ginny Cicero is a Los Angeles-based strength and conditioning specialist with a bachelor's degree in kinesiology and over 20 years' experience as a health and fitness professional. Whether she's working with Hollywood celebrities or cancer patients, Ginny uniquely combines exercise science, sports nutrition, and corrective exercise. A speaker, presenter, and writer, numerous publications such as Shape, Mind Body Green, and the LA Daily News have featured Ginny's work. As a seasonal sales rep and consultant to the professional nutritional supplement industry, Ginny is passionate about advancing natural medicine and optimal health. In addition to exercising, writing, and consulting, she is training to become a Master Gardener through the University of California Master Gardener program. Outside of work, Ginny is an avid reader and enjoys diverse interests such as weight training, sprinting, baking, and makeup artistry. Welcome, Ginny. We're excited to have you here today. Thank you. It is now over to you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And this is a topic, yes, I am truly passionate about this. Learning about parasite cleansing. It's sort of the hot topic right now. You see this in a lot of circles in the natural medicine field. And, you can trace this all the way back to if anyone is familiar with Hilda Clark, she's a famous Canadian writer and healthcare practitioner who wrote a book famously titled The Cure for All Diseases. And, that's a pretty bold statement, but she based the cure for all diseases on tracing them back, all disease states, to parasitic infections. So it's really something that has its roots in a long history of problems in the human body. So we're just kind of get a basic understanding of this today. I'm going to start with what we're going to address. Understand the causes of symptoms related to physiologic dysfunction, discover how the body repairs itself when it is given what it needs. We're going to define foundational medicine, which is different than functional medicine. Find out the most efficacious approach to healing and why, the solutions based on the latest technology and results, and learn the science behind parasite cleansing. So how do symptoms begin? All symptom, sickness, and disease begins with inflammation and a gradual decline in energy production. Energy is produced in the mitochondria at the cellular level, as you all know, I'm sure. So we're going to go into a bit of a discussion about mitochondria, but it's very basic and it's going to be review for most everybody. But the main focus here in terms of mitochondria is your mitochondria producing energy or using up its precious resources fighting on behalf of your cells? And that is trying to fight off the toxic burden and protect your body from that, using up resources instead of producing the energy for your body and your physiological processes. And then, of course, looking at immune system dysfunction. So looking at a very broadly at energy production and mitochondria, the cell's batteries, or we like to say, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. ATP is the unit of energy used in the mitochondria. That is the unit of energy production or produced. Food becomes fuel to create ATP and thus cellular energy. The cleaner the fuel, the better the energy. So garbage in, garbage out, as we always say. So keep it clean and you'll have more energy. With the right fuel and materials, the body can repair itself at the cellular level. So supporting cellular function is to support mitochondria through proper detoxification. So what happens is if the mitochondria is not functioning properly, detoxification is not happening properly. And that is going to cause a lot of symptoms in terms of exhaustion, mental fatigue, physiological fatigue, and muscular fatigue. So there's sort of three different types of fatigue, an all over general fatigue, fatigue in the brain, and then muscular fatigue. And they're all traced back to mitochondrial performance or dysfunction. So detoxification is not a quick process. So as we've seen in functional medicine in recent days or weeks and months, maybe even years now, we're sort of following a bit of the allopathic model where you do lab tests and there's a marker out of range and you say, okay, well, we have high cholesterol, we'll put you on a statin drug. And then your functional medicine practitioner, your natural medicine practitioner will look at those same labs and say, okay, well, your cholesterol is out of range. We're going to put you on red yeast rice. So you're basically just trading currencies with the same approach, which is treating lab tests instead of the person. So root cause wellness then is looking at it, what is causing the symptoms, not just treating the symptoms, whether that's with a pharmaceutical drug or a natural medicine supplement. So based on that understanding, we know that detoxification is not a quick process and it's going to take a while to get the body detoxified to where energy is being produced efficiently. So keeping that in mind, think of Herring's law. So we heal in reverse order as the symptoms have appeared or have been suppressed. For every decade of sickness, expect approximately 1 year of repairing of the body. So that's just sort of a basic guideline. Of course, as you know, there is no specific start and stop for anything. It's a process, it's a journey. But this is one way of looking at, the time expectation overall. So facts about mitochondria with respect to health, cellular energy is often discussed, but mitochondrial function is really more accurate. If you have approximately 30 trillion cells in the human body, 39 trillion cells are bacterial cells. So it's a little creepy to think that we are more bacterial than we are human, but that is basically what's going on. So most of these cells have anywhere between 1,000 and 10,000 mitochondria per cell, depending on the type of cell. They're often depicted as these cute little pill shapes, these little capsules, but they can morph into any shape and even a network of mitochondria. So we're all used to seeing that diagram with the little capsule, but they could take pretty much any shape. The heart has about 5,000 to 8,000 mitochondria per cell, but look at what the brain has, 2 million mitochondria per cell. That's why when you're studying or you're doing something very focused, you'll notice that you can get just as tired when you're not exerting your energy physically, but mentally. Mental exhaustion is a real thing, as we said earlier with the 3 types of fatigue. So liver cells, about 1 to 2,000 mitochondria per cell, and red blood cells do not contain any mitochondria. So this is the mitochondrial wheel. So this is basically looking at the impact of mitochondria on different systems in the body, from drainage to neurological function, memory, thoughts, energy, enzyme activation, detoxification, regeneration, hormone production and secretion, and immune system regulation. So in short, mitochondrial dysfunction is going to equal symptoms, which will eventually lead to conditions in the body. Energy dysfunction is cellular dysfunction. Cellular dysfunction is organ dysfunction. Organ dysfunction leads to symptoms, which will eventually lead to a diagnosis. And this is a very interesting fact, is there are about 20,000 prescription medications in existence. How many of those actually address repairing cellular function? And that would be 0, sadly. So as natural medicine practitioners, we realize then it's important to look at root cause foundational medicine to get the foundation of the body working as it's intended so we can repair damaged mitochondria and other organelles at the cellular level, which works then right up the chain. So, what causes mitochondrial damage? Viruses, parasites, medications, heavy metals, mold and mycotoxins, and severe oxidative stress. Mold and mycotoxins are particularly difficult. So, in the body, you have parasites. We all have parasites, and we'll get to that in a moment. But parasites can actually harbor within their bodies mold, mycotoxins, viruses, heavy metals, candida, pathogens inside their very bodies. And they can actually go up to 3,000 times their size, the size of the mitochondria themselves, filled with all of these toxins. And this creates a general toxic burden within the body. So, just looking at the mold and mycotoxins portion of this, damaged mitochondria will impact sleep, energy, immune function, oxygen levels, and the body's ability to heal. So, when you're thinking about what is the root cause of a given condition, that could be anything from low oxygen level to a very high load of toxins that the person is carrying, to being sleep deprived, which could also be caused by parasites, and low energy. So they all feed into each other. So, what we're looking to do when we clear parasitic infections is we're trying to lower the pathogenic load in the body so that we can bring the system function back up. The lower the toxin and pathogenic load, the higher the systems can function. So, parasites they have somewhat of symbiotic relationship to us. They will sequester, as I mentioned, some of these pathogens and mold and yeast and heavy metals inside of their bodies, which takes them sort of away from the internal organs and the vital organs in the way that fat sequesters toxins and keeps toxins away from the vital organs. It's a similar type of thing. But what happens is once that pathogenic load gets too great, it overwhelms the immune system. And then the immune system is focused, as we mentioned, on addressing that pathogenic load, as opposed to fighting infection that may come into the body or simply producing the physiological functions that produce energy. So we want to keep that toxic burden and that pathogenic load manageable for the body so that it can all the insults that come at it can be managed. So we have pollution in terms of water, air, toxins in the food that we eat, prescription medications that we take, just basically endogenous toxins that the body produces when it performs physiological functions. So all of those toxins in the body have to be filtered out primarily through the liver and the kidneys. But in order for the body to do that efficiently, it can't be overburdened with a pathogenic load, and that's what we're going to get to. So, foundational medicine that I mentioned earlier is an approach that focuses on removing toxins and raising the basic biological functions in the body. And this will bring clients back to a baseline and clears a lot of the white noise, which would then enable you to address specific conditions and have better long-term results. So if you were to focus on drainage, opening up the colon, liver, bile ducts, kidney, lymphatic system, and then focus on supporting mitochondrial function and cellular function improvement, that is getting the body to a baseline where it can then handle more of the complicated pathogenic stresses that are put onto the body on a regular basis. Fungus, Lyme, parasites. And then you also can consider adding binders. We'll get to this in a moment for pulling out some of those parasites and some of those other toxins and fungus, etc. And then, of course, you want to support the hormones, the blood blood sugar, inflammation, and all of the other things that you do through nutrition and a healthy lifestyle, this all sets the stage for then addressing what isn't cleared out from this white noise. Take the example of a house that's under construction. You have drywall up around the rooms, and you're not just going to paint the drywall. First, you're going to primer it. You're going to put a foundation on that wall of primer before you're going to go ahead then and paint the walls whatever color you're going to paint them. It's the same type of thing. So the science of detoxification then. Why do we detox? We all have physiologic natural processes that eliminate toxins and things that we shouldn't have in our bodies. We live in a toxic environment, and just look on the Environmental Working Group website and they have identified about 87,000 different chemicals in our environments now. That's in our air, our water, our food supply. Glyphosate now is sort of dispersed throughout the atmosphere to where I think if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Zach Bush said it would be at least 50 years to clean glyphosate out of the environment if we never used Roundup ever again. So that is because they are, absorbed into the atmosphere through the soil, and then it's in the clouds, and when it rains, then it's brought back into the atmosphere. So it's an endless cycle. Many people do not eat well, which can add to the toxicity, the toxic load, and provide the body with less nutrients than we need to detoxify. Most of you are familiar with this, the process of detoxification in the body. So a lot of this is review, but it does play into the total picture of parasite cleansing. So parasites, pathogens, and viruses steal these nutrients from our bodies. So these natural detoxification processes need support to efficiently work. So lifestyle choices will also stress these processes: not eating well, not exercising or over-exercising, alcohol use, drug use, and this is one of my all-time favorite cartoons here about exercise. Of course, I have to get a plug in there for exercise because it's just the neglected redheaded stepchild, sadly. Not for this group, but for a lot of your clients, unfortunately. So I am associated with Cellcore Biosciences. I have endorsed other product lines. There are some great products out there by other companies. I use Cellcore. And one of the mottos that Cellcore has is, if you have a pulse, you have a parasite. And this is true. So these are just a few of the studies that you can find on PubMed and other searches that show what types of parasites are in the human body and what types of effect or impact they have on our systems. So I took this out of the journal Nature, which is as scientific and respected as it gets. So this caption, which is a little small to see, says, West Nile virus, artificially colored, can invade the central nervous system more easily in the presence of parasitic worms. So this is what I was talking about when I mentioned that parasitic worms that reside in your gut, and also it has been proven other places in your body, including your brain, your blood, your nasal passages, and other parts of the body. These parasites harbor mold, viruses, yeast, and toxins inside of their actual bodies, and then they secrete things like ethanol, ammonia, and other waste products into our bodies that make the environment very toxic. So when we prepare for detoxification, which is what parasite cleansing is, it's a type of detoxification, there are, from my perspective, a right and a wrong way of doing this. So some approaches begin using binders, antiparasitics, chelators, or enemas, but they neglect the drainage portion of the parasite picture. So if you're going to begin killing off parasites, yeast, mold, funguses, etc., if you do not have proper drainage pathways in the body, there is nowhere for these things to go. So you have them dying, secreting their waste products into your body, leaving behind their exoskeletons, and then you're not having frequent enough bowel movements, you're not sweating. Your lymphatic system is clogged because you don't have movement in your life, or your liver and bile ducts are clogged because you don't produce sufficient or quality bile, or you have parasites that block the bile ducts. All of these things contribute to these toxins being reabsorbed into the body. When the toxins are reabsorbed into the body, that's when you have Herxheimer reactions or detox reactions, which can be very uncomfortable, ranging from headaches to low-grade fever to severe or moderate to severe abdominal pain and more. And we'll get to that. So considering drainage prior to parasite cleansing, even if you're only doing a short parasite cleanse for 1 week, it's very important to open up these drainage pathways. So what does that look like? So the colon and bowel movements, that's typically making sure the person is having at least one bowel movement a day, preferably 2 to 3 per day, if they are dealing with a more complicated health condition. So what I always point out is, if you give your dog a bowl of food in the morning and the evening, you take your dog out for a walk 45 minutes after they eat. Their digestive systems move a little quicker than ours, but the point is, you would expect the dog to have to eliminate after they've eaten. Why would it be any different for a human being? And yet we all know that we have clients that go 2, 3, 4, even longer, more days without having had a bowel movement. So it's really important to get them regular, to work on their liver and bile ducts with supporting nutrients, milk thistle, parsley for the kidneys. We at Cellcore, there is a product called Advanced TUDCA that is a secondary bile salt that will help improve the flow and the quality of bile. There are other companies on the market, I believe Body Bio is another company that makes a TUDCA product. There is what is it? I can't think of the other. There's another one right now. It'll come to me. Another company that makes another TUDCA product. There's also Biobotanical Research that makes biocidin. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. That is an excellent product that kills a lot of different unwanted organisms and toxins in the body. But addressing these things so that you keep the drainage pathways open is critically important before you start killing parasites. So the lymphatic system, keeping that circulating. Stagnation is the enemy of the body. If you are not moving, of course, I am an advocate of regular daily exercise, but sadly, not a lot of us are doing that. So at least encourage people to get out and walk. Anyone can walk, even when you have, orthopedic restrictions. Anyone can walk. If they can't walk and multitask and read books or answer phone calls and whatever, hold meetings, these are all things you can do while you're walking. At least do things like rebounding, dry brushing, and some of the other things that we've all learned for lymphatic drainage stimulation. Yoga, the way that different yoga poses and different yoga practices will move the internal organs in such a way as to stimulate the circulation of lymph. These are all great ways to get the lymphatic system moving, but stagnation is going to contribute to some of these detox reactions. So important to keep moving, keep hydrated. You're going to drain the brain and lymphatic system by supporting mitochondrial health. And that goes, of course, right down to the basic cellular level. So when you're considering drainage and detox reactions, just keep in mind that everyone is different based on how functional or dysfunctional your drainage pathways may be, would be an indication of what type of symptoms you may or may not experience. Everybody is different. I worked with somebody recently who was is a personal trainer in the prime of his life, in perfect shape, eats super clean. We went to do a week-long parasite cleanse. I had him on a very moderate dosing schedule, and he felt terrible. And I checked all of his drainage pathways as well as I could beforehand, and he still reacted as somebody who is not open. So you just never know. So it's basically best to start with a beginner to a moderate dose of antiparasitics in order to prevent those detox reactions. And we'll get to that in a moment. So here's looking at the body's drainage funnel. The photo on the left shows a healthy drainage funnel, healthy stream of poop there. And then on the right, you look at the other person who's constipated, where you could see that spillage or that overflow. That's where those toxins are being reabsorbed into the body. And out to the left there, where it's really spilling out, it says skin, kidneys, and lungs. So this is basically how these detox reactions would affect the skin through perspiration, the kidneys through urination, and the lungs through respiration. And the way that typically is expressed or manifests is in the skin. That could be cystic acne, it could be psoriasis, eczema, just skin rashes in general. The kidneys, it tends to be less UTIs and tends to lean more towards kidney stones, because again, the calcification of minerals and so forth will keep blocking some of those drainage pathways. That's an indication that you've got some drainage to clean up. And then the lungs, you could have a detox reaction that presents as a cough, and that is parasites or drainage pathways opening up in the lungs, from which parasites can sometimes be embedded in, sadly. Okay, so beginning parasite cleansing and addressing drainage, you're going to discover, are they having 2 to 3 bowel movements a day? Do they sweat? I personally, as somebody who's an exercise person, I found when I first began parasite cleansing, I noticed that it would be 110 out, and I would barely have a little sweat in the nape of my neck. I should have been pouring sweat. So that showed me that I had some work to do on my drainage pathways, and I did. I spent a couple of months working on that before I really started a deep dive into parasite cleansing. A lot of people won't have to spend that much time. There's a week-long process, there's a month-long process, but you just want to look at some of these telltale signs, such as the bowel movements, the sweating, hydration, and movement, circulating that lymph in the body. So if they do not have open drainage pathways, does this preclude them from participating in a parasite cleanse? I would say not necessarily, but again, you want them to be as comfortable as possible throughout the process. So this is an intake form here that looks at some of the different symptoms surrounding drainage dysfunction. And you could give them a query like this, or an intake, and looking at some of the different signs that show that there is drainage function present. The higher they score here, the more concentrated the drainage products you want to give them, higher dosing, longer or shorter period of time. If they wind up in the green to the yellow area of scoring on this, they could go into a very short or mild support for drainage, like if they're constipated, some sort of laxative. Cellcore has a product called Bowel Mover that's excellent. You could also use magnesium or vitamin C or Triphala or any of the other herbal laxatives that you have found in your practice that works for you. Get that constipation addressed, or if they're not sweating, making sure that they are hydrated, they are supporting liver, that they are having good bile flow, Digestive enzymes may be appropriate in some cases, but using your clinical knowledge of supporting the digestive process can help open up some of those bile ducts and the liver and eliminate some of that liver congestion. And these types of questionnaires are a way of evaluating where the patient or the client stands in that circumstance. So lymphatic drainage practices, you're probably familiar with a lot of these: dry brushing, breath work, proper hydration, alternating hot and cold showers, ambient movement. So that basically means walking. You're not necessarily doing a hardcore workout, but you're outside walking or on a treadmill, which tends to be why some people drop off of walking, because it's boring. So I encourage people to get out and be in nature, or at least be looking at things that will hold your attention on a walk. Rebounding, yoga, lymphatic drainage massage is excellent if you can find a good lymphatic drainage massage therapist. They're not always easy to find. Infrared sauna, and so on and so forth. You're probably familiar with these. Coffee enemas are great. So these are the Cellcore products that I have used to support drainage. So there's the TUDCA, that's the bile salt. The kidney liver would be supportive products. Again, silymarin, parsley, things like that. Artichoke, what else? There's lots of herbal and botanical formulas that help support liver and kidney function. And then LymphActive is a product that has some really unique products in it for lymphatic drainage support. There's one really unique herb in there called chuchuwasi, which is used in the Native American cultures to help support lymphatic drainage. So you could use either one or the other, bowel mover or TUDCA, depending on if they're constipated or they appear to have liver congestion, or perhaps they would need both. Or these three products could be put together as a kit to address drainage for anywhere from 1 week to a month, depending on how you dose it. If they appear to be sensitive or they know themselves to be sensitive, you would want to dose lower over a longer period of time, which would be for about a month. If they are not sensitive, you could ramp this up and dose, for example, 444, which is, as it says here, as a 444 kit, that would be 4 capsules twice a day of each product, which would last you about a week. So that's a harder hit at drainage if the person has a tougher constitution and could handle that prior to the parasite cleansing. So, excuse me, common detox reactions: headache, low-grade fever, diarrhea, constipation. I say increased fatigue because we know that people, most of the time, the reason they will do a parasite cleanse or engage in a lot of natural medicine practices is because they are fatigued. So I say increased fatigue in this instance. I personally, knock on wood, am not dealing with any health conditions, but when I do a parasite cleanse, I absolutely feel tired for that week that I do the cleanse. So it's something that it's noticeable in terms of your regular baseline fatigue, unless they're dealing with other health conditions that have, that bring on that condition, which is pretty much everything. Skin rashes, lightheadedness, abdominal pain, body aches, and even anxiety. So this is a very interesting aspect of parasite cleansing, and that is doing a parasite cleanse around the full moon. Is this hocus pocus, or is this a real medical thing? It is definitely founded in medical science. These are some of the studies that I have found on the lunar cycle and on how a parasite behaves during the full moon in the human body. What happens is serotonin is elevated and melatonin is suppressed. It might be kind of icky to think about, but that gives the parasites more free rein to move around your body and reproduce. So doing your parasite cleanse around the full moon means that you will catch more parasites when they are active. So instead of waiting for them to lay their eggs and catching them at some other point in the cycle, you're going to get the most bang for your buck hosting the parasite cleanse over the full moon. That means a few days before the full moon, the day of, and a few days after. So studies do show parasitic activity increases around the full moon. And I can give you a little story I had about this. I went to visit as a sales rep with a plastic surgeon. So very conventional, very allopathic. She, to her credit, was bringing in a naturopathic doctor to work in her practice to support the work she did as a plastic surgeon by promoting beauty from the inside out. So in my presentation, I was showing her because she wanted to know what products her patients would be taking, to her credit again. And she wanted to learn a little bit about the process. As I explained this to her, she told me that she was very curious to hear about the parasites in the full moon. And I expected her to roll her eyes or to think this was hocus pocus. And I began to explain why this was medically sound concept. She kind of leans over the table and looks at me and says, any doctor that has ever worked a rotation in an ER during the full moon knows that that is no joke. So that was an interesting endorsement there. This is the upcoming 2023 full moon calendar. So the next one coming up in April, that is the 6th of April. So if you were to do a week-long parasite cleanse, you would do 3 days before the day of the full moon, which is the 6th, and 3 days after. And then you could look this up online to get this chart for the rest of the year. You could host these full moon cleanses once a month, every other month, once a quarter. It depends on the health of the patient and how many parasites what their parasitic load you might feel they would be holding. And we'll get to how you can figure that out. So you can give the products to patients with some adjustments to the protocol for depending on how they're reacting to it. If you recommend parasite killers and binders for those killers to bind to, but patients start reacting with detox symptoms, you could adjust the protocol with dosing. You're not going to stop the cleanse, because you're just going to have to go back to where you started. So what you want to do is just lower the dose so they're more comfortable. It's going to extend the time period of the cleanse, but you're going to have a much more comfortable client, and they will thank you for that. So if they are doing really well and you want to ramp it up, you could take them on a mega dose or a higher dose. It depends on the patient and what their goals are. What you will see in the toilet is sort of the payoff for parasite cleansing. So this is disgusting. Yes, it's gross, but what we say at Cellcore is better out than in. So patients are disgusted by it, but at the same time, they have this sense of relief by getting rid of these parasites and seeing the results in the toilet. So that's why I have these chopsticks here that I recommend that clients use to filter through their poop in the toilet and see what they can see. 30% of parasites are visible with the naked eye. That means 70% are not. So what you're seeing in the toilet is typically the mimosa pudica seed, which is the Para 1 product from Cellcore, which is a very, very sticky product that we call the gut scrubber. We'll get to this in a minute, pulling everything out, and some of the other products that are killing some of these pathogens. And all of this is eliminated in the bowel movement. And again, the client can go through that with the chopsticks and look at what's in there. Some people get very into this, and they actually go over a metal strainer, and then they rinse it out and they go through the contents of the strainer. To each his own. That's a little extreme for my taste, but there's no reason why you can't do it. But that's going to really show you what's in your stool. Coffee enemas are also a great way to help support this process, particularly for patients, or I'm sorry, clients that are constipated. So these pictures, I should have forewarned you that there was something gross coming up, but this is what people will see in the toilet. Humans are animals and are subject to the gravitational pull of the moon. So when you kill parasites over the full moon, this is what you are likely to see. We all have parasites that harbor mold, yeast, toxins, chemicals, etc. And how do we get them? We get them by swimming in lakes, rivers, and streams when we were kids or when we're adults, our pets cleaning up their poop, them kissing us, sleeping in the bed with us. You can get them walking barefoot in the grass if you happen to step over poop and you don't know it and you don't see it and you step out in the grass. Traveling, we've often thought of parasitic infections as something that is unique to third world countries, and I can tell you that is not the case. We all have parasites. So if you do travel to third world countries, though, where the hygiene is not as good, that is often where a lot of people will pick up parasites, which, by the way, can live in your body for decades. You can also have mosquito bites, tick bites, other insect bites that carry parasites and pass them into your bodies. This is how they get into our bloodstreams and into our organs and tissues, where they reproduce and live for decades, potentially. There is a book called This Is Your Brain on Parasites. It's by Kathleen McCullough. I think it was written in 2016. This author goes through one particular parasite called Plasmotoxa gondii, which is the parasite that lives in cat feces, which is why you've probably heard that if you're a pregnant woman, do not change the cat litter box, have someone else change it for you. Now, by the time it gets to the point where it's taken over your brain, which is what is talked about in the book, how parasites can actually change your personality. Okay, so Plasmotoxa gondii is, once it gets to the point where it is taking over your personality, hopefully you'll have recognized there's a problem before then, but the point is it can go that far where it takes over the personality of a person. And the thing to remember is a parasite wants to live in the host where it can steal the host's nutrients. So that the goal of the parasite is not to kill you, although I'm sure there have been times where that has accidentally happened, sadly. But it's not like mold. Mold doesn't care. Mold will take over your body and kill you. It doesn't care. Parasites do not want to kill the host. So it will live with you until you do a parasite cleansing and start to lower some of this toxic burden. That brings me to the topic of stool testing. So stool testing is the most common way up to really very recently, where people assessed whether or not they had parasites. There is GI Maps tests for about 8 different parasites. Vibrant America Labs tests for 23 different parasites, so 3 times as many as GI Maps. At that, it is still a drop in the bucket. There are thousands of parasites. Most parasite tests through stool testing are going to be false negatives. We all have parasites. The way that we get them, as I just explained, there's so many ways. Not cleaning your fruits and vegetables properly. In some ways, you have to practically scrub the skin off in order to make sure there's no parasites. At what point is it enough? So this is just part of being human. We deworm our animals every year. If you've ever worked on a farm, it's just part of the process. Other parts of the world, this is a common practice. I worked with a practitioner in Costa Rica who said when she came to this country and began practicing in America, she was shocked that it wasn't a yearly practice to parasite cleanse everybody. And she just made that part of her practice. We all have parasites. Stool testing is likely not going to reveal it. So you're just going to have to go with the assumption that people do have parasites. And to a lesser or greater degree, they are affecting your immune system, your mitochondria, your digestive system, your energy levels, and so on. So going through a parasite cleanse, I like to stress that clients have realistic expectations. They're not going to feel completely transformed at the end, especially if you do a week-long full moon cleanse, which is typically what I do training on, is a week-long cleanse, because it is a low barrier to entry, both with time commitment, financial commitment for most people, and how long they are willing to feel a little bit off. A week is perfect, but a week is not going to get rid of parasites in the body. It's simply going to show you what's there. So the good news is it shows your client what they are dealing with so that you can take them to a more comprehensive protocol or program that will clear the parasites or lower that toxic burden, because you're never going to clear the parasites 100%. There will always be some there, and there are always new insults coming at the body, no matter what we do, to bring more of those parasites into the system. So doing a week-long cleanse, such as what I'm describing, is a great way to show people, give them a buy-in to more parasite cleansing and a more supportive, comprehensive program that you would then provide for them. So benefits include feeling lighter. It's a very real, tangible sense, whether the scale has moved or not, to feel a sense of lightness. And once you have gone through a week of parasite cleansing, you have a feeling of lightness in your body, which will give you more energy. It can clear up your skin. It'll put you back into emotional balance often. What I see happen quite often is people will experience a sort of a sense of anxiety when they're passing parasites, where they actually have emotional releases. I've seen people sob after passing parasites. It is just an emotional release in their body that passing the parasites has triggered. And these parasites are very, very smart. I've actually heard the Cellcore founders discuss the fact that some people will feel very, very hungry when they parasite cleanse. What's going on there? It's the parasites asking to be fed. You're killing them off. They're very smart and they want to be fed. So some people will experience extreme hunger during that time. And the reverse is also true. I personally have a tendency to be have a lot of sugar cravings. Every time I do a parasite cleansing, it's quite a long period of time before I start craving sugar again, which is going to help with blood sugar balance, which long-term indirectly would help with weight management, in theory anyway. So managing blood sugar better, because your cravings are lower, because you've killed the parasites that are screaming at you, asking for that sugar. So lowering that parasitic burden, that toxic load, will give you less sugar cravings. Feelings of gas and bloating will decrease, and maybe modest weight loss. I really try not to, a pound or two. I try not to even bring that up, because then people, how people get crazy about weight loss and they just start looking at the scale. There could even be a temporary pound or two weight gain, which I no longer mention to people because they get crazy. It is temporary. That will pass by the time they finish the cleanse. And then they tend to, like I said, be a pound or two down from where they were when they started. So I wouldn't even bring up any questions of weight, but just to give you some knowledge of how to respond if they bring that up themselves. So getting to the products themselves, there are 4 actual products in the Cellcore Parakit, which is what I typically use. Again, there are other products on the market that you can use to do similar things. The first 3, these are the para products. They're parasite killers. And then the 4th is the binder. So I will explain what these do just briefly. The para one is like a chia seed. It's dry until it hits moisture, and then it gets very thick, sticky, and gelatinous. Anything that it comes into contact with, it will stick to and pull out of the body for excretion. That means it's going to bust biofilms, which tend to hide your heavy metals. It's going to pull parasites off that are clamped against the wall of the gut. It is going to pull out candida, mycotoxins, mold, um, other pathogens, anything that is in the gut. It is going to be pulled out by this para-1. Now, the para-2 is a collection of herbal killers. It has clove, neem, vidanga, and some other Ayurvedic herbs that work to kill pathogens. They're killed, they stick to the para-1, and then they're both pulled out. Para-3 is a liquid herbal killer that has some very powerful killing properties. But the key to this one is it works systemically. Because of the way that the Cellcore products are formulated, it is able to go beyond the gut wall into all body tissues. And then through the drainage pathways in the body, it winds up filtering through and eliminated through the colon. So the para-1 and the para-2 is this the tape, the sticky tape, and the killer. And the para-3 is also a killer, and that will pull out for excretion. Now, the real small, very and the microbial, tiny little pathogens, and some of the radioactive elements that are in the form of gases, those are going to bind to the binder that is also part of the kit, and that's called a biotoxin binder. Cellcore makes a variety of different binders that bind to different types of pathogens, but the general binder in the week-long parasite kit is called biotoxin binder. So all the small particles and all the little things that are not, that are floating around will stick to the binder, and that will be pulled out for excretion as well. There is also a fourth para-4. This is a real versatile product that is an antifungal, antimicrobial product. It is not included in that week-long para kit, but just to know if that was something that you were looking for as an antifungal, it works really well with conditions that you're looking to address, like candida, maybe even H. pylori. You could dose pretty high with this because it's a pretty gentle product, but it's really good with candida. And we also advocate drinking distilled water to remove radioactive elements that could cause commensal bacteria to pleomorph. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole to go down, but just know that that para-4 is antifungal, and drinking distilled water can also benefit treating candida as well. So these are the types of parasites that you would potentially be removing. So cestodes and nematodes are the priority. As you can see with this chart here, there's a lot of overlap with the different products. That's why the kit with the para-1, para-2, para-3, and the binder works so well, because you're hitting all the different types of parasites and you're overlapping with all the different things that they address. There's a couple of other products here that are mentioned, but the main ones are the para-1, para-2, para-3, para-4 outside of the kit, and then again, considering the binder to bind to these things that you kill and pull them out. Now, strongyloides, those are threadworms. Those can live in nasal passages. So you could use that para-3 liquid with some distilled water as a nasal rinse that will kill those strongyloides and pull them out of the nasal cavity. I've seen them living up there. I've even seen them living in the eye sockets. These things are no joke. So here's another way of looking at toxins in the body. This was a practitioner that used one of our longer protocols that showed a person's thermography scan in color and black and white. You can see the before, all the different colors and the different hot spots where the toxins were concentrated, and what the tissue looked like after. I think this is a very compelling slide. It really shows where toxins can live all throughout the body. And obviously this is breast tissue, it's not the gut. So the products were able to make it through the acidic environment to the GI tract to the breast tissue to clear out some of the toxic burden in the breast tissue. And in the black and white picture, you could see this in terms of the little stars that are, you know, so much more concentrated in the before than the after picture. So in the para kit, the para 1, para 2, para 3, and the biotoxin binder, this is how you would dose it. If the patient is sensitive, either you have tested them or they come to you saying they know they're sensitive, you would put them on the beginner dosing, which would be 1 day before, the day of the full moon, and the day after. They're not going to see a lot of things in the toilet on this dose, but they will begin the process of parasite cleansing. They will have a lot of leftover product, and they'll be able to continue in subsequent months with subsequent full moons. The intermediate dosing, this could be where somebody, you're not sure, or they're not sure if they're sensitive or if their drainage pathways are open. And they would do 2 days before the full moon, the day of, and 2 days after. And then when you get to the advanced dosing, this is somebody who has been working on drainage. You and or they know that their drainage pathways are open, and they're ready to hit it hard. They're ready to get rid of as much as they can in a week with advanced dosing, which would be 7 days. So this is the specific dosing of the products. Wake up, morning, noon, evening, and bedtime tends to be empty stomach, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and bedtime on an empty stomach. Para 1 and para 2 must be taken on an empty stomach because, as we described, it pulls everything out. So you don't want to take food, supplements, or prescription medications anywhere closer than an hour around para 1 and para 2. The same thing goes for bedtime. Now, the para 3 and the biotoxin binder, you could take those with or without food, either way. The binders do not bind to other supplements and pull them out. That's one of the unique formulations of Cellcore products. The binders will help the other your other supplements. If you're, for example, if you're using, say, Thorne vitamin C, or you're using a Metagenics product or another product from another company, it will actually help that product be absorbed better. Binders, however, we do not know how they work with prescription drugs. So make sure that you do not take the binders anywhere closer than 2 hours around a prescription medication. So those are 2 things to keep in mind. Don't take the para 1 and para 2 around food or supplements or prescription medication. Binders can be taken with food and other supplements, but not prescription medications. So going back to this beginner dosing, it would be for the time frame on the previous slide, the day before, the day of, and the day after. But this is for people who really need a conservative approach. They're squeamish, they're sensitive, they're new to natural medicine, and they will have very minimal detox reactions. Intermediate dosing, it's still a conservative approach. This person may not have done a parasite cleanse in the past, so they may or may not know what to expect, but they're perhaps a little braver, and they will have some product left over as well. And they may be able to stretch that into a second month of parasite cleansing if you're doing that 1 week cleanse. They may have detox reactions, but they would be minimal, especially when drainage is open. So this is 4 capsules of para 1 and para 2 on an empty stomach, morning and waking up and bedtime. And then you have the binder in the para 3, either on an empty stomach or at mealtime. And then you have the advanced dosing. So that's 6 and 6, and so on and so forth. These are for advanced people that are either they're not afraid, they want this stuff out, they've done parasite cleanses before, they know and you know their drainage pathways are open, and they're comfortable with the process, and they just want to let it rip. So that would be advanced. They will see things in the toilet at this dosing. You could dose even higher. I personally am doing 10 para 1 and para 2. at wake up and bedtime, and I'm doing 3 droppers full of para-3 and 5 biotoxin binders. So that's what we call mega dosing. I know people that do 13 para-1 and para-2, but advanced is technically 6 or higher. So other considerations, healthier clients expecting to see something, dose higher. Clients with reservations or sensitivities, dose lower. You can rotate the para-4 in if you would like to focus on yeast, make sure drainage pathways are open. You can use some of the other Cellcore products and continue to support drainage throughout the parasite cleansing. You don't have to stop it before you start parasite cleansing. You can continue it if you'd like, and they would like the extra support. For a healthy person who wants to do periodic parasite cleansing, we recommend once a quarter. That should be enough. Other people who want to just keep going, you could do it every month, every other month. Just at some point, it's enough, and you need to give the body a chance to rest. So I like every other month or every quarter. Troubleshooting, weight gain, a couple of, here and there, people will gain a pound or 2, but that will be rare, and it's temporary. Some people do experience insomnia. Again, all of these things are temporary, just so that you could know what some people may come to you and say, I'm experiencing this, is it normal? So most of these things on this list here, yes, they're normal. They are temporary, and they will clear after that week, 3 or 5 days, whatever the duration is over. And what's next then? They've gone through this week. They know they have more work to do. They can move into a lower, slower approach to parasite cleansing, where they go through a process of more focused drainage, more focused parasite killing, and more focused detoxification that will last multiple months. To the complicated or sick person, which could be on that program for even as much as 9 months. So that would depend on what the person is dealing with, and whether they're just in for, just wanting to clean up that gut a bit, or whether they are dealing with more serious complications. And that could be a 4-month program or a 9-month program. So that is it. This is what the para kit looks like. These are the 3 parasite killers with the biotoxin binder. And again, there are other companies that have similar products out in the marketplace. This is the one that I use, and it's very effective, and patients love it. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and have a great day.
Ginny, that was fantastic. Thank you. I certainly got some nuggets of wisdom there. I love the reference to Dr. Helder Clark. We always got to remember that foundational wisdom, right? So really good. And I also like the explanation of foundational medicine, because of course the buzzword is functional medicine. I just like the way you really broke that down. Really excellent. And that reference when you said about, we deworm our animals like once a year, that was really good, putting it into context, right? And like you said about people from other cultures. Also, thank you for the reference to the book. This is Your Brain on Parasites. I think this is definitely going to be something that people are going to want to check out, because, of course, as you know, a lot of what we're kind of talking about today is brain inflammation, neuroinflammation, brain fog, etc., etc. And of course, parasites, as you've just kind of demonstrated, there are going to be clearly playing a potential role in that. So I know that you guys will be with us in a couple of weeks, 6 weeks time. I believe Cellcore are having a booth, so no doubt people can reach out and come and ask any further questions, and I'm more than happy to sort of share your contact information with, of course, your permission.
Sure.
Yeah, and I just really want to thank you, because that was fantastic and really comprehensive. So yeah, as a reminder for anyone listening to this, our conference is coming up in just 6 weeks' time. We'll be in Seattle, Washington, 4th to 7th of May. I also want to remind you that you can review this presentation again in the NANP members area, along with a vast selection of cutting-edge webinars, which are all worth 1 continuing education credit. You do need to take a quiz just to earn that credit. And then, yes, if you've got an interesting topic that you would like to present, or if you know any speakers that you would like us to host, please feel free to reach out to me, Andrea, which is andrea@namp.org. So this brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.
Bye bye.